Hi, my name's Trev Hutchings and this is the Vortex Wireless 2 and this is the MicroQ. So first I'm going to set up a preset on the Vortex Wireless 2. So I've opened the Vortex Wireless 2 preset editor on my computer. I've connected a USB cable to the computer and to the Vortex Wireless 2 and I've switched the Vortex Wireless 2 on. Note that you have to use a USB cable when you're communicating between the Vortex Wireless 2 and the preset editor. You can't use the wireless stick. Okay, so I'm going to change the pads first. So pads 1, 2, 3 and 4 I'm going to leave on channel 1 and I'm going to change the type to program change on all these pads. So that means when I press on these pads they will change the sound patch that I'm playing on channel 1. Now we've got 3 parts here, so we've got this bit here which is a bank, and we've got this one here which is a bank, and this one here which is the program itself. Now on my MicroQ it doesn't use the MSB, so I'm going to leave the MSB selected to 0. And if you don't know the MSB for your synthesizer or sound module, then try using this 0 and just to see if that works. Now the LSB on my MicroQ, 0 is bank A, 1 is bank B, 2 is bank C, and 3 is the drum bank. So for the first one of these pads I'm going to set the LSB to 0 and I'm going to change the program number, which is the patch number, to 84. Now it's worth noting that the program number I'm putting here is 84 and on the MicroQ that will be program 85, and that's because MIDI actually starts from 0 and runs through to 127, but most sound cards and synthesizers will set up the first patch as 1 and not as 0, because that makes more sense from a human point of view. Now for pad 2 I'm going to set the LSB to 1 and the program to 59. For pad 3 the LSB is going to be 2 and the program is going to be 3, and for pad 4 the LSB is going to be 2 and the program is going to be 51. So that's my first 4 pads set up. Now I'm going to click on this triangle on the end of this line and get myself pads 5, 6, 7 and 8, and I'm going to change these. First one to program change, pad 6 to program change, pad 7 to program change, and pad 8 I'm going to set to panic. Now the panic one means that when I press on pad 8 it will stop any notes. So for instance, if the Vortex for some reasons gets switched off and it doesn't send a off note, so the synth or sound module continues playing the note, I can switch the Vortex back on and just press pad 8 and it will stop any notes from playing. For pad 5 I'm going to set the channel to 2, and the same for channel 2 for pad 6 and channel 2 for pad 7, and I'm going to change the programs. This is going to be 36 and that's an LSB of 1, and this one's got an LSB of 1, and program is 97, and this one is LSB 2, and this is program 2. Okay, so next I'm going to go into the faders. Now the first 4 faders I'm going to leave as channel 1. I'm going to set fader 1 to a CC of 7. That means that it controls the volume for channel 1. I'm going to set the CC for fader 2 to 30, and the CC of 30 on the MicroQ controls oscillator 1 FM. That will be different for different sound modules, and it will also be different for synthesizers. For channel 3 I'm going to set the CC to 31. Now this one is slightly different from the others because the minimum maximum here is set to 0 to 127, which is what you would normally have for something like volume, and in this case for controlling the FM oscillator, which I was doing with fader 2. But fader 3 is controlling CC 31 controls the shape of oscillator 1, and there is only 6 options, so I'm going to change it from, so minimum is 0 and the maximum is going to be 5, so that gives me 6 options. Now fader 4 is going to be CC of 33, and that's going to be left with 0 to 127, and 33 on a MicroQ controls the oscillator 1 pulse width. I'm going to click on the triangular arrow at the end here so that I get 5, 6, 7 and 8 faders. I'm going to change all these faders, so that's 5, 6, 7 and 8, so they're on channel 2. So now on fader 5 I'm going to change that to CC7, so once again that's a volume control, and that's going to control the channel 2 volume. And on 6 I'm going to change that to 16, that's a 0 to 127 again. And on the MicroQ, CC16 controls the LFO1 speed. For fader 7 I'm going to set that to CC15, and that controls the LFO1 shape. So once again there's 6 choices for the shape, so that's going to be 0 and a maximum of 5. For fader 8 I'm going to set that to 14. Now this is quite an interesting one on the MicroQ because this actually controls the ARP, the arpeggiator, which is interesting because you don't often get that on synths or sound modules. And that has 4 different types that it controls, and basically what that's controlling is whether the ARP is switched on or off, whether it runs once round the circuit or whether it's continual play. So I'll just set this last one here to 3, so that gives me an option of 4s there. And lastly I'm going to go into touch ribbon, and I'm going to leave the default bank to bank 1. I'm going to, on here it says release mode, and what I want is return. You've got 2 options here, return and latch. Latch would mean it would work like an on-off switch, but because I want to use the ribbon for pitch wheel, I want it to return. So once I take my hand off the pitch wheel, I want it to go back to the correct pitch. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to put it onto channel 2 because there is already a pitch wheel on the Vortex that controls channel 1, and I just want a pitch wheel for channel 2 as well. So I'm going to change that to channel 2 for bank 1, and I'm going to change the type to pitch bend. Now I know there's CC minimum and maximum sitting here, but you don't have to worry about that. Once you've set it to pitch bend, just ignore these 3 underneath. Finally, if you prefer to do it, you can go back to pads and do what I've done here, which is on pad 5, 6 and 7 I've changed the pad color to orange, and for the panic, which is pad 8, I've changed that to red. Okay, so Now that I've set up my preset, I'm going to go to File and I'm going to click on Save Preset. So then I'm going to type in preset 25. Just save that. And then I'm going to go to File, Send Preset, and I'm going to send that preset back to the preset 25 on the Vortex. So click on Send. It says it was successful, so click on OK, and I'll cancel that. And that's that done. To connect the Vortex Wireless 2 to the MicroQ, I've connected a MIDI cable to the back of the MicroQ, and now I'm going to connect the other end to the Vortex. With the Vortex now connected to the MicroQ switched on, and the Vortex switched on, I can now start playing. The preset that I set up earlier in the preset editor was set to preset 25. So now I make sure that the Vortex is set to preset 25. The first 4 pads I've set up to control the lower zone. Then the next 3 pads I've set up to control the upper zone. And the last pad has been set up for panic. The faders have been set up so that the first 4 faders control the lower zone and the second 4 faders control the upper zone. With the upper zone selected, I can now press on one of the orange pads to select a sound. I can now move faders 5, 6, 7 and 8 to change that sound. With the lower zone selected, I can now press on one of the blue buttons to set the sound and use faders 1, 2, 3 and 4 to change the sound. By setting up a sound for the upper zone with the RPG on, I can then change to the lower zone and play over the top. If you've enjoyed this video, do give us a thumbs up and click on that subscribe button. Cheers.